Hello, today I'm going to read Mr. Bounce by Roger Hargreaves. I always like the earlier book version. It's much easier to open out. The newer books are a bit tight, so they're not easy to show, to stretch out like this. So here we go, Mr. Bounce. This was done in 1976. Mr. Bounce was very small and like a rubber ball. He just couldn't keep himself on the ground. He bounced all over the place, and as you can imagine, that made things rather difficult. There he is. His hat's fallen off, and he's bounced over the daisy there. Last week, for instance, Mr. Bounce was out walking when he came to a farm. He climbed over the farm gate, and you can guess what happened next, can't you? He jumped down from the gate and... there he is on the gate. Bounced right into the duck pond. Bounce went Mr. Bounce. Splash went Mr. Bounce. Whack went the ducks. There he is. I like his little feet peeping out. The other morning, for instance, Mr. Bounce was in bed. He woke up and jumped out of bed, and you can guess what happened next, can't you? He bounced right out of his bedroom door and all the way downstairs. Bounce, 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 bounce. That happens quite often, which probably explains why Mr. Bounce leaves his bedroom door open every night. And there he goes. Bounce, 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 bounce. All the way down the stairs. After he had picked himself up, Mr. Bounce went into his house and sat down to think. Bounce! Mr. Bounce bounced off the chair and banged his head on the ceiling. Bang! Went Mr. Bounce's head on the ceiling. Ouch! Said Mr. Bounce. Oh dear. They always have that unusual wallpaper of flowers, which is very mad. This is ridiculous, Mr. Bounce thought to himself, rubbing his head. I must do something to stop all this bouncing about. He thought and thought. I know, he thought. I'll go and see the doctor. And there he is, rubbing his head. Oh. So after breakfast, Mr. Bounce set off to the nearest town to see the doctor. He was passing a tennis court when he tripped over a pebble. Bounce! He bounced. And he bounced right into the court where two children were playing tennis. And you can guess what happened next, can't you? And what's going to happen next? He's got a racket. The children didn't realize that Mr. Bounce wasn't a tennis ball and started hitting him with their tennis rackets backwards and forwards over the net. Bounce! Ooh! Bounce! Oh! Bounce! Ouch! Poor Mr. Bounce. Oh dear. Going over the net. Eventually, one of the children hit Mr. Bounce so hard, he bounced right out of the tennis court. Mr. Bounce bounced off down the road towards the town. Oh dear, he said, feeling very sorry for himself. I've been bounced black and blue. Oh dear. There he is, looking very sorry. A bus was coming down the road, and Mr. Bounce decided that the safest place for him to be would be to be on it. He got on and sat down, still feeling more than a little sorry for himself. The bus drove into town. As a child, when I saw the bus in the Mr. Bounce book, I thought, oh, I'd like to be a bus driver, because it looked so fun. But anyway, I became a cartoonist and then an artist. The bus stopped right outside the doctor's. Mr. Bounce stepped down from the bus, and you can guess what happened next, can't you? He didn't step down onto the pavement outside the doctor's. Oh no, not Mr. Bounce. He stepped off the bus and onto the pavement and bounced in through the doctor's window. Wow, what a bounce that was. There he goes. Dr. Makewell was sitting at his desk. enjoying his mid-morning cup of coffee. Mr. Bounce sailed through the open window and landed. Well, you can guess where he landed, can't you? Oh. That's right. Splash went the coffee. Ouch, squeaked Mr. Bounce. The coffee was rather hot. Good heavens, explained Dr. Makewell. There he is, splashing around in his coffee. After the doctor had fished Mr. Bounce out of his coffee and sat him on some blotting paper to dry out, he listened to what Mr. Bounce had to tell him. So you see, said Mr. Bounce finally, you must give me something to stop me bouncing about all over the place. Quite so much. Pondered the doctor. Look, who's his star in the picture, Mr. Bump. Must see Dr. Makewell quite often. After some thought, Miss Dr. Makewell went to his medicine cabinet and took out a pair of tiny red boots. This should do the trick, he told Mr. Bounce. Heavy boots, that should stop the bouncing. Oh, thank you, Dr. Makewell, said Mr. Bounce, and walked home wearing his red boots. Not bounced, walked. Here he is, you see the red boots. He's very small, isn't he, Mr. Bounce? That's right. Mr. Bounce went to bed wearing his heavy boots, and then he went to sleep. He likes that flower wallpaper. There's a different colour this time. The following morning, he woke up and yawned, and stretched and bounced out of bed. And can you guess what happened next? What did happen next? No, he didn't bounce down the stairs. So there he is. He's about to bounce. Is he going to bounce? He went straight through the bedroom floorboards and finished up in the kitchen. And there's the back cover. All the Mr. Men that were created at that time. And of course, there was more later. And in the week you last saw me, I've done another piece of artwork. I've actually done two, but one's in the car. But I'll show you this one. This is my lilies. I've used metallic acrylics, so it shines with gold in the centre. I'm really quite pleased with it. One tip I give you is when you do a painting, to show it to people, and sometimes show it to people who may be helpful in giving you advice. It's hard to receive advice, but it's worth listening to it, and then you can make it even better. And on this occasion, I did the painting. I showed it to a friend who's on Facebook, and she said it needed more texture, more paint to bring it more 3D. So that's what I did, and it did improve it. And I made the petals more different angles and shapes. So it's hard to hear what people think of your work, and you just want to get praise all the time. But it's you can sometimes make it better. Oh, there's the doorbell. So I'll leave it there on my live stream. Thank you.